Welcome to Real Chat,
the podcast where we, Annie and Chad, discuss real shit
loosely related to the real estate industry. Hi, Chad.
Hi, Annie. How's it going?
Pretty good. We're back.
We're back. What episode are we on? 24?
Well, full disclosure, we got halfway through last week's episode during a hailstorm and we had to stop because it was so loud.
So now we're recording several
That
days
same
late.
one, but it's just, yeah. So what was the last one? I think it was 24. You said 34 and I corrected you, and now that's not on public record. So I just want to bring it back to everyone's attention.
I did say 34. It is episode 24.
Okay.
Episode 24. Talking about real estate shit.
Or something loosely related.
It's amazing we find stuff to talk about every week. You know that?
Yeah.
Totally unscripted. So what happened
Crickets.
last week?
Crickets.
I know. I saw a news article last week about Zillow, and we had talked about Clear Cooperation and the new...
Saw the same one. You should... Oh, I cannot believe I saw it too.
Why?
Because I don't usually... That's not usually my jam.
Oh, I get inbox updates,
I know.
email updates.
Yeah.
It was interesting and good for Zillow. I mean, not good for Zillow, necessarily good for Zillow, but good for Zillow for doing the right thing.
I was going to say,
some prompts to Zillow.
I agree. I was telling someone yesterday, I actually might like them now.
Yeah. So they came out, the news article said anyways, they released a statement and they issued their own policy about, we talked about Clear Cooperation and now that we're going to have multiple choices for sellers or whatever, which all of that crap cracks me up because we've always had multiple choices for sellers, but we're getting the new choice for sellers of delayed marketing.
Right.
So basically you can list your house with a realtor and they list it in the MLS, but they put it on delayed marketing. And so it doesn't go to IDX feeds or internet data exchange feeds. So companies like Zillow, Realtor.com, other brokerages can't put it on their websites. But everybody who's an MLS subscriber, so any realtor who's a member of the MLS will be able to see it in that status. And Zillow, understandably, is pissed because they're not going to get listings, and Zillow makes money off of data and presenting it in a way that consumers understand it and then capturing their information and that kind of stuff. So yeah, they released a policy that said, if you put your listing in delayed marketing, we're never going to put it on our website.
It was.
Even
it was
if
like,
you
if you're not going to play fair
marketing off of it, realtor,
Right.
you think your MLS is king, then list it in your MLS.
Right.
And we'll see what the consumers think about that.
Yep.
Which is funny because on Waking Up to Win today, you were
I
talking
did.
about the realtors not understanding what their job is anymore. And so that plays right into that too.
It's probably how I came up with the topic, if I'm being honest.
Is it?
After I saw Zillow release that, and then I went down that thought process of,
yeah. If you want your listing to be on Zillow, then you best make sure your realtor is not putting it in delayed marketing status, because if they are, it's never going on Zillow.
And if you're a realtor who wants to put everything in delayed marketing, you need to make sure that you let your seller know that it's never going on Zillow.
Right.
And I don't know what the number is, but, I just know from my own personal experience that almost all of our buyers look on Zillow.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of, I used to say, now, if you're finding something on Zillow that's not in the search that I send you, then you need to send me that, because that's not possible. Or you've got the parameters different in one versus the other. But do I care?
No, I never understood that. People for 8 years now. Has it been 8 years?
Ish.
Since I started with you? I know I didn't have my license and stuff. So 8 years ago, I didn't have my license. I was just your assistant. So I was not doing anything public with the clients or anything like that. And I would sit back and I would listen to realtors bitch and moan incessantly about Zillow and how much they hated Zillow. And I would always think to myself, why? They make our lives so much easier.
Right.
Like, seriously.
I think that what we were afraid that Zillow was going to do that maybe they attempted and didn't do was why a lot of realtors hated them. But Yeah.
which was what? Buy houses and resell them themselves?
Uh-huh.
They're still doing that.
Yeah. Just not to the level that we were scared.
They never were going
Right.
to.
Well,
I mean,
it's that whole.
what is the argument I always used to make? So Zillow's biggest source of revenue comes from realtors.
Right.
Like they have gotten really good at taking the data, which is all of our conglomerated, whatever that word is, combined conglomerated listings, and presenting them in a way that is easy for the mass public to sift through those listings on
Right.
their own.
Right.
And so that's what they did. And then they were smart. They started capturing the data behind all of that. And then they're able to identify buyers before we are. So they're selling that information to us. And I don't understand why realtors hated that. I don't understand it
Right.
at all. If
Well,
I
they
could
were
pay
they were
somebody-
hating it and buying the
At the
leads
same
that
time.
Zillow created.
I mean, like,
we were
identify.
keeping them in business.
I do think that that's part of the problem is when realtors talked about Zillow leads, they're saying you created them. Zillow didn't create the lead, right? The lead was just identified by Zillow because they're that good at parsing data and tracking people's user across
Right.
the internet and what they're
Well-
looking at, and they're good at anticipating that. And so I don't have a problem paying for that service.
And you waking up to win today that's not really your role.
No, not anymore.
Right.
Used to
it
be.
used to be. You used
Yeah.
apparently back in the day.
Right, when it was in a
before my
book.
it was in a you needed a realtor to get to the information.
Right.
You no longer need a realtor to get to the information.
Right.
So realtors need to understand where their value lies,
Right. No, it's true. You don't.
which is in the experience and the
right.
navigating the process and
Right.
yeah.
the feelings of it, managing that emotional roller coaster.
And
is
getting
where
you
the
what you
realtors
want,
are.
and negotiating price and negotiating and all the things that you wouldn't have the skills to do. But
Right.
to actually know that 27 Main Street is on the market for $350,000, you don't need a realtor or their portal that they've signed you up to. You
Right.
don't.
It is, yeah. So good for Zillow. I thought it was great, and
I did too. Well,
you
yeah,
know,
and we would.
We don't get to make decisions on corporate Realty One Group or Realty One Group
Right.
trifecta, but several of the big brokerages, and I'm putting this out there publicly. I hope Realty One Group gets on board with them, but several of the big brokerages across the country that have agreed with Zillow that they won't do it, right? Because they want their listings on Zillow. EXP was one of the first ones, and then Compass just did too.
That's who I was wondering, because that's my understanding is that's who they were going. That's who they were addressing directly with Compass.
Right. Well, because Compass is all about the private listings. And
Right.
truth be told, there's been a lot of stories about Compass wanting their own or wanting to do away with public MLSs, but I don't understand. I don't understand how that's beneficial for anybody, especially I don't. So I don't know why they would want that. It makes no sense to me, which is
Because they think they'll have power because they're bigger, squeeze all the little guys out.
yeah. I mean, but they're not. I mean,
What else could it be?
I don't know. That's what I'm
I
saying.
mean, that's the only thought
I
process
feel
I-
like that thought process is short-sighted because
Sure it is.
the little guys still exist today.
But it's only
and-
short-sighted for a little while until you put them all out. But
You know, if you
but
ever
that's why.
do
But
that.
that's why it was nice that Zillow stood up and said, "Okay,
right.
go ahead."
Yeah, that's interesting.
So yep.
So I was proud. I've always been a proponent of Zillow. You know that. You and I have argued about it in
Yeah.
the past. Like
I use it.
right.
I get info.
They're good at what they do. Going back through, we've bought leads for real estate from a
Absolutely.
lot of different companies, and Zillow's leads are the highest close percentage we ever had. They're the ones that we were able to create lifelong relationships with beyond just that one transaction that we bought the lead for overall.
Well, they knew who they were, and they stuck with their program. Because I'm thinking of OpCity and Realtor.com.
Right.
Like, oh, here's this
We were gonna sell you
platform
up
where
front.
you can pay in the rears. You have to pay it
Right.
up front, and so you sign up for that, and then all of a sudden they are the same company and they're selling you leads over here. So if you're getting an OpCity lead, you're getting crap,
Right.
or because they're selling it to you over
You're
here.
getting,
It
getting the ones that they couldn't clothes on.
No, Zillow knows who they are, and they tell you up front, this is what we do and this is what we charge.
Yeah.
Play or not, don't care.
Right. No.
So,
and I love I've actually met the Zillow, the guy that released that statement at a YPN conference a couple years ago, and I really liked him. He's very smart. So.
Is your shirt bothering you?
No, I had an itch on my back here on my shoulder. There was something itching me. So I itched it.
Scratched
Scratched it, whatever. Itch, scratch. It was so nice out yesterday. So excited.
I was at a dance competition.
It was so nice.
It's nice out today. I just took a walk.
It's a little chilly for me today.
Oh, no, it's lovely.
Yeah. It was so nice
Like
yesterday.
in the
Mikey did
60s.
all the planting out front or whatever, and I'm excited for the lake this summer. So
Yeah.
I'm excited it's getting warmer, but
Our pool is open. I did not get to swim, but my daughter and granddaughter swam.
I know. Spring house checklist. What do you do? Like in the spring, what do you do to your house? You don't do anything to your house.
Let me tell you, the people
What's
who
your
live in my
husband?
exactly.
What do your
exactly.
minions do to your house in the spring?
No, and now my mother-in-law lives with me, so I even have spring flowers.
Oh.
Spring flowers I love, but I would never plant the spring bulbs because they felt so short-lived, and I wasn't, So I just plant the summer flowers, the perennials that bloom all summer. But I have so many beautiful spring flowers. It's lovely.
Which is so funny because do spring flowers live just as long as summer flowers do? They just live in the spring instead of in the summer.
But I'm not out there yet. Like it's still getting cold and we're not swimming. And so there are a lot of, I don't know, there are a lot of work for that tiny little blip. No, I like things that bloom more than once, like those little tulips, and they bloom once and they're done.
Gotcha. I know what you mean now.
I like the flowers that bloom all summer.
If you get enough of them, like they're mature enough, they bloom at different times through the spring, though. So, like you have a tulip garden, you might have tulips that are growing and coming up and blooming for like 4 weeks during the tulip bloom season, right? But if you just have 3 tulip bulbs planted somewhere, they all pop up at the same time.
And then the rabbits eat them and they're done. The Easter bunny is out right now, so that's why I like my Stella Delora.
See, but even those,
because they bloom all bloom all year. I mean, once they start, they bloom until
they do. But haven't you ever noticed that those also
daylilies are? I couldn't think of what they were.
First time Stella Deloras bloom, there's massive amounts of blooms. And then they just kind of randomly pop up throughout the summer.
Well, you actually have to deadhead them. I think that's the
I know
technical term. But if you don't do that, they stop blooming.
But I've done that too. And they don't ever, that first bloom is like massive.
I know just a little bit about a lot of flowers because I want to learn and do it. And then after that, I'm like,
I've learned from my husband. But I don't actually take care of the flowers.
But so now my mother-in-law lives with me and she's like my dad was with flowers. So I'm going to have gorgeous flowers all year.
That's exciting.
Quite excited about that because I enjoy them. It's like most domestic things.
Do you think
I don't want to do them.
Do you think a lot of flowers so I've been, to houses and I always worry about this because my husband has the tendency to over plant. Like it becomes a lot to take care of. So like, for instance, your mother-in-law, right? Like she takes care of it and all of that. And your thought is like, oh, that's a lot to take care of. I don't want that. Do you think that affects people's like selling their house?
No, I absolutely do not.
Really?
What I have learned, I mean, now you might have your like really bougie, like amazing landscaping, or you might have your like total crap. I mean, like, so I'm not talking the extremes, but I'm talking just right down the middle. Most people do not care. It's amazing to me.
Really?
Because when I first got licensed, I thought, the dead grass or the weeds over here are too much landscaping to take care of. No, when my mother-in-law sold her house, the upkeep on what she had, I mean, like, it was like her 40-hour-a-week job.
Yeah.
And the people who bought her house, because she went back to look, because it was very sad to her, they just ripped it all out and put in what they wanted to put in. But no, I don't think it affects people.
Really?
I don't. I got ambitious once with my old house and planted the whole back hill. It lasted like 2 years and then I went through and I pulled it all out and planted some more grass seed. It's a lot of work.
It's a ton of work.
Yeah.
It's a ton of work. It's at our house that we just bought. The landscaping was terrible.
No, it was just old.
Yeah, not maintained is what it was. The boxwoods were growing over the front porch.
And there comes a time where you have to
and it's
yank
like,
it out
well, but
and start over.
yeah, so and then we bought it because of where the house was, but I always just wonder if that would make like a difference. And then our house that we sold, we spent god awful amount of money redoing all the landscaping, and we had it nice and maintenance free, and it was all of that. And I don't think I'm not sure it made a difference.
I think it's that thing that I always talk about that you can't measure.
Mm-hmm.
It's the how it makes you feel.
Yeah.
So, and then it comes to priority. So you bought a lake house at the end of the season,
right?
And you were focused on how the dock and the backyard made you feel. I remember walking in to show you that house or to go with you to see that house. And I mean, we were like, the front porch was full of cobwebs and the bushes are overgrown. And like, we got to the backyard and we're like, oh, I can see us, so I think it just matters to what's important, but.
How do you focus on a selling feature then? Like that's what I always like. Which one do
Chad,
you pick?
this is my waking up to win today. This is why you have to find out why somebody's moving in, why they are looking at a certain house, because that may or may not be important to them.
Yeah, but
so you pull up and think that overgrown bushes are a problem,
right?
And your why was the lake. It would not have mattered what that house looked like if the backyard was good and the lake access was great.
Well, I don't know that that's
you overlooked
true,
a lot of stuff.
I did overlook a lot of stuff because of where it was, but
you overlooked the kitchen.
I know my.
I mean, you can go through the whole list that you wouldn't have overlooked.
Which is true for a buyer. I totally. I'm there with you.
Okay.
My question is, as a seller, how do you know what to focus on?
I don't know that as a seller you have to. What do you mean by focus on?
Like if I'm getting ready to sell my house and my landscaping is a mess, or you
hire a realtor.
My paint is a mess. I know I'm asking you as a realtor, how do you where do you prioritize those things, or how do you prioritize? Because you can't possibly know what a buyer's why is, which I agree. As a buyer's agent, you need to know that because that's going to help you. But as a seller, how do you prioritize those things? Because you can't possibly know. I mean, every buyer that comes through is going to be different.
Sure, but you try to appeal to the masses, not the one-offs.
Yeah.
So if you own a house on a lake, probably most people who are coming to see your house are going to be super interested in the lake and what that offers more than the front yard. And then as a realtor, we go through that and we give you the pros and cons of each thing, whether it's paint colors or because you can't do everything.
And some people can, but yeah.
Most people won't want to.
If you can,
that's a show called Love It or List It. Is that it? Where they redo it all?
Yeah.
Or List It or what is it?
Love it or list it or love it or list it. Something
so they
like
go
that.
through and they
you
upgrade
go
all of it,
upgrade
and then you can decide if you would. Yeah. No, and I'm usually in the camp of, unless it's something that I think is going to deter people from buying your house. If it was something like that you didn't do while you lived here, is it really something you want to do now? And I'm talking like major things. You're not going to finish your basement just to sell your house, usually. Could you? Sure. But
yeah. And if it would add value for some reason, then you could for sure. But
right.
What are the top 5 things that deter people from buying houses?
Oh, that's off the top of my head. I only get 5.
Opinion. I was gonna say 10, but I didn't want to put you that far on the spot.
Well, I could probably name. It would be easier to do 10 than to limit it to 5.
What's the number one thing? Like
number one,
or you could start with number 10. I don't care.
It's going to depend on what the client has already told you their why or what they want, so if it's someone like my husband.
But from a seller's agent standpoint, I'm talking about what is the number, so you walk into a seller's house and in your experience selling houses, what is the number one thing that every buyer hates?
Carpet, old cabinets, outdated bathrooms. These are things that are fixable. I found that most buyers are okay with doing some upgrades down the road, but can I live here now?
To the level that they want to live there.
Right.
So carpet is a total dead thing.
Especially if it's bad. I mean, I guess if it's brand new carpet and it was done nicely, but
even when there's brand new carpet, do you
floors in general, people don't want to mess with floors.
So funny because it's one of the easiest things to change.
People don't want to mess with floors.
House.
Yeah. But you can't move in. But you don't want to move in until it's done.
That's true.
So if you need to move in right away, then you're thinking, am I going to move all my stuff in and then move it to do floors?
Yeah.
Most people are okay with paint, old windows, the big systems in the house, furnaces, stuff like that. Nobody wants to deal with that. Now roofs are a killer. Used to not be.
I don't think people care about roofs though.
Right.
Walking into the house, like I don't think like from a seller standpoint, they're going to cause a hiccup in the transaction once you sell your house if you have an issue. But so it's probably not a bad idea ahead of time. But
just knowing what your buyer wants, if they're okay with doing a few things or they don't want to do nothing.
You're really fixated on them buyers today, aren't you?
Yeah. That's why you have to win this week. From a seller standpoint, we're going back to sellers.
What you said was the number one thing like every buyer hates. Like that's why I'm talking to sellers right now. So if I'm getting ready to list my house this spring or I'm thinking about listing my house and I'm thinking to myself, am I ready? Because it is that time of year, right? Where everybody has that thought. It's back outside. Oh, there's that fucking neighbor I hate. Or, oh, I got to go outside and cut the grass again or whatever it is. For whatever reason, everybody in the spring has thoughts of selling their house. Yeah. And so school's almost out. A lot of people want to move in the summer when their kids are out of school. What is it if I'm standing there and I'm a seller and I'm looking at my house and I'm like, could I sell my house in the next 1 to 2 months? The answer, yes or no, or what would I have to do? Carpet, number one. Like I think you're right. I'm weird. I like carpet, but only in the bedrooms.
Right. No, that's not weird.
But
that's pretty split.
Flooring makes sense. Like carpeting throughout, especially if you have
really
an older house and
flooring.
you've been there for a while or whatever. And then cabinets makes sense too. Now, is it the state of the cabinets or is it actually the quality of the cabinets? Because
probably the state of the cabinets. I mean,
so
color,
whether they're
hideous.
So it's the style of the cabinets that makes a difference.
Old appliance. I mean, it's the whole vibe of the kitchen.
Right.
Because that's a big expense.
Because you can have nice cabinets that are old, right? Like you can have solid wood cabinets that are just old style.
As long as they're in good, if they're in good shape, it's not as big of a deal.
So it's just the degraded.
And you know what a
type of cabinet.
A big problem right now is walking into the DIY house.
DIY.
What's DIY?
I don't know.
Do your
information. I don't know.
DIY. And finding poorly painted cabinets. That's the worst. I would rather find old looking cabinets than somebody decided on Saturday morning to paint them and just got a paintbrush out and
I did PSA for people. I feel like this is that not one? Would that not be in the top 5 list? Like we've got floors so far. Now we've got cabinets.
Yeah.
For me, I feel like everybody hates a DIY gone wrong. Like, if you are doing shit yourself, just do yourself a favor and ask a friend, hey, am I doing this good or not? Right. Somebody that will tell you the truth. Because
I showed 2 houses this week, same exact house. On the exact same street. Mm-hmm. One actually came available a couple days later. And the one house, I mean, everything's the same. Mm-hmm. And the one house, though, and it's little things. It's like they didn't know how to cut the baseboards.
Yes.
And the other one
that's how you tell.
Right, the nice baseboards. Or the floor, we didn't pull the old floor up. So now we got that little bit of a gap there. So we got that piece of trim. Hand-painted cabinets. The one actually had the original cabinets, which was much more appealing than the poorly painted ones.
Yeah.
So,
it's interesting. Like I didn't. Yeah.
We sold a house
in today's day and age with YouTube and all the rest of it. Take the time to look it up and learn how to do it the right way.
Or leave it alone.
Or leave it alone. But I'm just saying, if you're insistent on doing it yourself, fine.
Right.
But take the time to learn how to do it the right way.
Right. But yeah, walking into a house where you've done all the work yourself and it's not right.
Yeah.
Is awful.
And number 3. What else does every buyer hate?
Wallpaper. That's almost a deal. That probably needs to jump up to number 1. Wallpaper will kill the deal.
Just old wallpaper though, right?
Well, yes. I'm talking like wallpaper that you have to remove to live there. Like
70s, 80s, 90s, early 90s.
You know, we had a listing 2 years ago down on like Main Street, Fifth Street. What was that? What was that street down there? St. Charles, Old Town. I mean, just a really cool house. But it had...
Started with an M.
Every room had...
Monroe?
I don't know. It doesn't even matter because I'm not going to know it. But every house had wallpaper, which was in good repair. Yeah. Shockingly, like old wallpaper. But I said...
From the 50s.
But I said, you're going to lose potentially, you know, possibly half of the potential buyers because nobody wants to come in and mess with that.
Yeah.
And so they took the wallpaper down and, you know, had it professionally done because that's a job. That old wallpaper, I don't even know what they used to use for glue, but it was good stuff, and painted it. But that house was our highest over list, went 95,000 over list. But I think a big part of that was because they did do those things.
Did the work. That's a good one. I feel like wallpaper nowadays, new wallpaper's making a comeback.
Yeah, but that new wallpaper goes up and down a lot easier.
I know it does. That's what I'm saying.
So it's not even wallpaper. They need to give that a different name. Wall stickers? Accessories or something. Decals, like, because it comes off super easy.
Yeah, it is.
You ever taken wallpaper off?
No, yes.
I took it off of a flip once, and it came off in pieces this big. And I had every tool that was out there known to man.
I'd have taken the drywall down and just put new drywall up.
Yeah, that's not a skill I had. That would have been a DIY. That would have been bad. I guess paneling. My option would have been paneling.
You could put a paneling up. I think that I always wonder if it comes off so hard because it used to be on plaster instead of drywall. Like you couldn't.
No, mine was on drywall.
Was it?
Yeah.
I was wondering that. I always thought that. I hated plaster. I had plaster in my first house.
Now maybe it went up right on the drywall. Maybe it wasn't like 17 layers of paint and then you wallpapered.
Maybe.
And maybe that was why, because this was an older house, like in the 40s, 50s.
The one that you flipped?
No, the one that we sold. And
but I don't know how that came off. Somebody did it professionally.
No, but I'm just saying it had no bad spots at all. It was on there.
Yeah. Oh no, that's true.
Where usually when you see wallpaper, you start seeing
bubbles or seams coming up.
So we said wallpaper, carpet, cabinets. What else? You went 5.
You said
I need a signal for that.
That house that you flipped, was it plaster or was it drywall?
Drywall.
It was drywall too?
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's wrong then.
Yeah.
All right, that's 4. What'd we say the 4 were? That's how you do 4. Spock, bring me home. I don't know. Carpet.
What's the number?
Cabinets. 5? DIY gone wrong.
Oh, I forgot about
and
DIY.
Wallpaper.
Okay. And I'm talking only things that you can change.
No, I don't care. I think if you listen, if whatever number 5 is going to be, you can't change it. You're screwed. Just bend over and take it. That's what you're getting ready to say. But it doesn't have to be something you can change or not change. Like, just what are the top 5 things that most buyers do not like right now? Because some of the things that I'm sure you're thinking about, you can't change are like layout related and stuff like that.
Right.
But those come and go. Those are styles. So right now you might be in a bad position with that. So the
last one would be old systems.
Old systems.
20-year-old furnace.
Yeah.
Things that you're going to have to possibly replace in the next few years.
Does a home warranty offset that from most buyers?
It does not.
No. Because I hear a lot of people saying that, which I'm a firm believer in home warranties.
I am too.
But I don't think that it takes away all of the pain point.
Right.
It's not a solution for the whole problem.
It's a great, we use a home warranty. That's a great product with Choice Home Warranty. A little plug there to
David.
to David. But they know it's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
So you give me a new furnace, it's guaranteed. You can give me the home warranty, but I know
They
as a
might not
consumer,
cover it.
right? And maybe it's not covered,
Or they're not going to cover all of it.
or it's
yeah.
yeah, it might limp along for a few more years. So those are my 5.
Yeah.
Landscaping did not make the list.
I know. Surprisingly enough.
Yeah.
What are the layout things that so go over that just real quick, layout things.
In older houses, I've been showing a lot of older houses lately. Just that back in the 50s and 60s, the main bathroom.
The primary.
I was going to say the master bathroom. Then I knew you were going to kick
job.
me. Closets were built small in those houses.
Yeah.
There were no walk-in closets
No.
because people didn't have obnoxious amounts of possessions like we do now. The closets were tiny.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the kind of things that you can't change.
Yeah.
So structurally, the size of bedrooms and master bathrooms, I said it, primary bathrooms, size of kitchens. I find the open floor concept is not as trendy. There was a time when everybody wanted it. Now you've got some people going back to they kind of like
having the spaces,
the different spaces. So, but that is part of it. And then in older houses, basements. Basements were not built back in the. We talked about that already. They weren't built for you to finish them and make them more living space. It's not what they were. So that's becoming a deal breaker.
That drives me crazy.
A basement you can't use?
No, a basement that was built back then not to be finished, and they finished it anyways.
Yeah.
I'm like, it just looks funky.
Mm-hmm.
We had that in a listing recently, and I was like, I don't know about this, but it sold, and it was a great, whatever.
Right.
They staged it, looked cute, but if you're gonna finish a basement, finish a basement.
Right.
Don't just throw some carpet down and paint the cement. That ain't finished.
It is not.
To me. But a lot of people think it is. So, anyways, this particular one I think had drywall, didn't they?
Yeah, ours did.
Yeah. So, but anyways. Well, that's interesting.
Are we out of time?
Springtime is a coming. So if you're thinking about selling your house and you don't have any of those things on the list, or if you do have them on your list and you know a good handyman, or you don't know a good handyman, because we'll get you one, right?
Yeah.
It's a good time to sell the house.
And it's just always a great conversation because maybe you have to fix it, maybe you don't. There is no right or wrong, good or bad.
It's true.
It's just a conversation and make a choice.
No,
and we'll navigate that with you.
And call your realtor and ask them, what should I do? Especially if you don't plan to stay in your house forever. That's a big thing. There was another news article I was reading about that. It's a $250 billion industry was renovating homes last year. And a lot of times, I can't remember exactly the percentage was, but the lion's share of that percentage, they were renovating to get ready to go on the market, undoing things that they did while they lived there. And they were some of them were on there and they quoted I wish I would have known this when I did it. I never would have done it. And I thought, well, you should have called your realtor.
Right. Right.
We can answer those questions now and what to do and not to do.
And also when you're doing those things, don't think, well, I'm never moving, so it won't be my problem. Because I guarantee you're probably going to move and it's going to be your problem. Right. And you cut corners and now it is going to bite you.
Everybody thinks they're never moving. That's why I just plan on moving every 5 years.
I'm never moving, and I say that, but that's probably not going to be true.
Right. You'll move someday. Someday you will move. Don't doubt that. I'm definitely moving again. Someday. As far away from you as I can get.
That's rude.
I'm only kidding.
I know you are. That's why I have a new casino friend, because you live too far away.
I know. You went without me this week, too. I'm mad at you about it. I'm a little bit salty.
I'm pretty sure I sent you a text. But you said, I live too far.
Now, did that actually happen?
You just ignored my text.
Exactly. I did not say I live too far.
That's why you ignored my text, because if I would have messaged you that when you lived over there on Tea Party, you would have said I can be there in 10.
I actually ignored your text because I had a house full of people
Okay.
having a birthday party.
Well, I hit aces with a kicker playing quarters times 3.
Yahtzee. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.